أحدثكم هذه المرة من سنغافورة، تحديدا من حدائق استانا، وهي حدائق القصر الجمهوري الذي تتم رعايتها بعناية. تحدثت اليوم إلى الرئيسة السنغافورية حليمة يعقوب. ناقشنا قضايا عديدة، ليس آخرها مسألة تمكين المرأة الذي هو هم بالنسبة لها، إنما أيضا العلاقة الاقتصادية الاجتماعية السياسية مع العالم العربي. أحييكم أينما كنتم من العربية. أنا منتهى الرمحي، وهذا البعد الآخر. ويسعدنا أن نرحب في هذه الحلقة بفخامة رئيسة سنغافورة حليمة يعقوب. أهلا بك معنا فخامة الرئيسة، أهلا بك معنا على قناة العربية. يثير اسم سنغافورة لدى الشباب العربي معاني التقدم والثروة والأحلام. بالنسبة للعرب والمسلمين جوهرة التاج في الحقيقة هو أن رئيسة هذا البلد المتقدم والناجح هي سيدة مسلمة. ماذا يعني هذا بالنسبة لك؟
Well, thank you for the interview, and also I'm the first female president of the Republic of Singapore. In fact, before that, I was also the first female speaker of our parliament for almost 5 years. So for me, this indicates very clearly that Singapore does not look at gender, but in fact accords people the opportunity based on their capabilities, merit, ability. And that is really important. And that has allowed women not only to excel in public office, but in many other areas as well, in the economy, in the professions, in social service. And that is because also we are a very resource-scarce country, and we are a small population. Our talent pool is very small. So if we do not make use of women talents, we will be deprived of the opportunity to develop and grow equally faster. And also at the same time, for me, we are a multicultural, multi-religious society. It also shows that regardless of our race or religion, opportunities are open to all. And the point really is that although I'm a Muslim, I represent all Singaporeans regardless of their race or religion. And it's important to bear in mind that in Singapore, as well as even in our religion, does not say that women is restricted from holding any position. In fact, if you look at the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, she was in fact a very successful businesswoman. To say that opportunities are provided, and that Islam is also a progressive religion. It does not restrict women in terms of what they can do, so long as this is something that will help to contribute to the development of society and to the economy.
لكن قصة نجاحك لا تقتصر على كونك امرأة ومسلمة وترأس بلدا متقدما، لكن أيضا قصة نجاحك الشخصية. أعلم أنك كنت محامية. حدثينا عن الظروف التي نشأت بها.
Well, this is another example of how Singapore functions. It is based on meritocracy, in the sense that opportunities are provided to all, and through access to education, to employment, to opportunities. I grew up from a very poor family. My father died when I was 8 years old, and so my mother struggled to bring the 5 of us up, And it was very difficult livelihood at that time, very deprived. I used to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. when I was very young, 10, 11 years old. I'm already used to helping my mother because she helps to run a cooked food stall in order to support all of us. I was the youngest in the family. And so I was so used to getting up very early in the morning, helping her out, and then after that getting ready to go to school. Sometimes it was very challenging because deprived of sleep. During weekends I used to help my mom, also deprived of sleep, of rest. It was a struggle to get through school. But I do have very caring teachers in the school. I remember a teacher in school who told me that, look, you're capable of doing better, and so you need to back up, because my grades were also falling. I was not having adequate rest. I was having too many diversions, at the home front. And so that helped me a great deal. And so through struggle, I realized that I need to give a voice to people, particularly people who don't have a strong voice. And this is where I decided to go into law. I studied law for 4 years, and then I joined the labor movement. And in the labor movement, of course, I gave advice on labor matters, industrial relations matters, workers' rights. It was a very fulfilling period because you're doing something very meaningful with your education and with your life. And giving voice to people who otherwise have a very weak voice. And during those days in the labor movement years ago, very few law graduates want to join the labor movement because it's not so glamorous, doesn't pay that well. But pay and glamour is not the only thing we look for as lawyers, you know. So to me, it is also important that we are able to contribute back to society, especially the society that has supported and benefited us. So that was how, you know, I came through. I have no regrets with having a very difficult childhood because it develops resilience, it develops discipline, it shows the importance of hard work, and you need to have those elements if you want to succeed in life.
نعم سيدتي، وفي هذا الصدد لو سألناك فخامتك كيف يمكن أن تتذكري مسيرتك السياسية؟
Well, I think it's been a very eventful one. I started in the labor movement, served workers for 33 years, and then during that period I also entered politics in 2001. I stood as a member of parliament in 2001 and went through 4 general elections, and then during that period I also became Speaker of Parliament for almost 5 years, and then I stood as President of the Republic of Singapore. So it has been a very eventful career, although if you had asked me when I was a kid whether this is where I would end, I would really cannot even conceive of that idea. But so it is, but at different stages of my life and my career, the most important thing for me is how can we advance certain causes. Some of the causes which I champion is of course mental health, wellness, and then people with special needs, women, you know. So in all these different careers that I have, and also underprivileged, disadvantaged communities, and so in all these different careers that I have, I've been fortunate, I've been given the opportunity to serve. And that I think is really something that's really very fulfilling for me.
فخامة الرئيسة، لطالما ركزتي على القيم الأساسية من التعدد الثقافي ومفهوم الجدارة والأمانة تحديداً، والتي تقولين إنها كانت أساسية لنجاح سنغافورة المستمر، لو تشرحي لنا ذلك.
Stewardship in a country is really very important. It is all about good governance, effective leadership, management, effective management of resources of the country. We have very limited resources, but we've been fortunate in the sense that through good leadership, good governance, we've been able to develop our reserve situation. As you know, we have a pretty good reserve situation, and that came in very handy. And a very good example is stewardship. It came in very handy during the period of COVID-19, when we had to roll out a lot of programs to help companies, to support workers, so that they don't lose their jobs, and when they lose their livelihoods, that impact on their family. And so we were able to use our reserves to take care of our needs, because we've had very good stewardship of the country, good stewardship of our resources and our reserves. And because of that, we are, now that we're almost out of COVID, we don't have to worry about debts, because debts burden the future generations, and they have to end up paying for those debts. So certainly, you know, good stewardship, good governance, good leadership, political leadership is very important. On multiculturalism, I think that's really critical for us, because that's the basis for the formation of Singapore. We were formed with multiculturalism, multiracialism, multi-religious society. At the time we were formed in 1965, that was the basis of our country's formation. And you know, and I think we see that as a strength. When we accepted that at the formation of a country during our independence, we see that as our strength. In fact, I do think that multiracial, multi-religious society are resilient, because we're so used on a daily basis, from young to be able to negotiate, to navigate, the different kinds of diversity that we have. So we are very, resilient society compared to a much more homogeneous society. And so, but of course, like in all things, we are also affected by what happens globally. Sure. And globally, there's a lot of pressures on multiculturalism, multiracialism, and that is because of polarization of people. People have withdrawn into their own identities. The identities could be based on race, religion, political groupings, or whatever. But people have withdrawn, receded, because they feel insecure. Globalization, part of it is also, it breeds insecurity sometimes. And of course, COVID-19 brings that to the fore. People feel even more insecure, and therefore they've dependent on their group identities a lot more. So we've got to watch for that as well. But in Singapore, I think the good thing is that we do have systems, structures, policies, which we constantly review in order to support multiracialism and our belief in a diverse society.
Your Excellency, we have to go to a break now and then we will come back. مشاهدينا الكرام، فاصل قصير نعود بعده. ومشاهدينا الكرام، مرة أخرى نرحب بكم معنا، واسمحوا لي أن نرحب أنا وأنتم أيضا برئيسة سنغافورة السيدة حليمة يعقوب. أهلا بك معنا من جديد. Welcome back again with us, Madam President. لو سمحتي لي فخامتك، بصفتي امرأة أنا أيضا أتذكر تأثير تلك الزيارة بين النساء العربيات التي قمت فيها للمملكة العربية السعودية، وقابلت هناك بعض النساء السعوديات. كانت لحظة رمزية. كيف شكل هذا صدى لديك؟
Well, you're quite right. We have very excellent ties with the Arab world, including Saudi Arabia. Is one of our big trading partners, Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East. And I was really glad at the invitation of His Majesty King Salman Abdulaziz bin Abdulaziz. And so I visited Saudi Arabia, and we were able to further strengthen those ties, particularly our economic ties. At the suggestion of His Majesty, we agreed to form a Saudi Arabia-Singapore joint committee to further use that as a platform to promote our economic and other ties as well. And other than economic and ties, we also have a lot of religious significance, because the custodians of the two holy places is under Saudi Arabia, and I was very grateful that I was given the chance to go into the Kaaba. For devout Muslims, that's very important. In our lifetime, we wish that we could get a chance, but there are so many Muslims, and so to be given that opportunity was very significant to me. And I am glad that relationship has further strengthened. We are looking at ways of how to make it even better. I'm really glad. Every time I do a state visit, I do make an effort to meet the women, and to have an exchange of ideas and views. With the Saudi women, I can fully relate to them, because I think women all over the world is the same. We all want to be given the opportunities, whether it's access to education, employment. We want to be given the right to choose, and it's the same with Saudi women too, making choices, over your own life, over big decisions in your life. Saudi women, there are some women who were entrepreneurs that I've met, some were in the professions, and all do have their own hopes and their own dreams. And I think as I look at the Saudi society, it is also changing. It is transforming quite dramatically and opening more spaces for women. And I think that's really good, because in any country, women forms 50% of the population. Obviously, you have to tap on the talent of the women if the country wants to grow and develop. And I think there's a really positive developments. I was very encouraged when I speak to them, and I visited Saudi Arabia. And these are good developments. The whole Middle East, as you know, is going through quite a transformation. And this is driven by, the government's desire to make sure that they fully utilize all their capital resources as well as their people.
كيف تخطط سنغافورة لتعزيز العلاقات مع العالم العربي بأسره؟
You see, one of the things that we did, I think we were the first country outside the Middle East to sign a free trade agreement with the GSS, the Gulf states. The Gulf Council, we signed with them a free trade agreement. Singapore and the Gulf states signed a free trade agreement. I think we were the first non-Middle East country to do so in 2008. And that was a starting point, which is very good. We were already thinking at that time, how do we expand the relationship in terms of trade, economic ties? And obviously, these kind of agreements will have to be reviewed from time to time, and I hope that it will be. But we do have the platform. And then with the joint committee between Saudi Arabia and Singapore, that provided another platform for us to advance our interests. And when I went to Qatar recently, also we signed several memorandums of understanding on trade, on low carbon technology, and so these have been really good areas for exploration. And a lot of the Singapore businesses are interested. They want to see what are the opportunities. And just as the Middle East is diversifying beyond oil and gas, we are also looking at how to diversify our investments, our economic activities with countries that are in the Middle East region as well.
برأيك هل يكفي تغيير القوانين والسياسات لتعزيز عملية تمكين المرأة؟
Well, I've seen many countries with laws providing quotas for women, whether in the universities, in parliament, and so on. My own view is that whilst it is useful, it is not always effective. I'm looking at these countries that have this legislation. Singapore does not have a legislation which says that women must constitute how many % of the parliament, but we have a significant portion now, at least 29% of the women of the parliamentarians are women. And that is, in a sense, organic, but at the same time, it is also because we provide the environment. This is the thing that we have to also to bear in mind, that we say we leave it to just, the environment as it develops. It doesn't work. Yes. You must have the environment that supports women's growth and development. So even though you don't have the law, but the environment that supports. For instance, if you have a political party, the party puts up candidates who are female. If the party does not put up candidates who are female, the women can never get elected as a member of parliament. So that's important. And also, women, I've spoken to so many women in Saudi Arabia, in other parts of the world, in Singapore. As I said, they're not asking for special treatment. They're asking for equal treatment, equal access to opportunities and the chance to be given the ability to make their own choices in their lives, which is important. So I think by and large, if you look at the development of women, it also depends on having a positive environment. The other critical factor, also important in Singapore, is attitude, social attitudes. If social attitudes don't change, it is still steeped in a whole idea that a woman's role is at home, to take care of the children, it will be very difficult. So social attitudes have to change, and we recognize too that is the biggest challenge for us. For us, it's not allowing the girls to go to school or to work, but rather is the distribution of responsibilities at home. So when the distribution of responsibilities is not equal, it's very difficult for women to pursue their career or to be the best in their profession. So for us, that continues to be a bit of the challenge. But it must be a supportive environment, effective policies encouraging women, social attitudes that are changing that will support women's development.
With law. These all, with law, will make the big change, I think.
I think if you have the law, it's a reference point.
Yeah.
And we are at different stages of development. For me, I've spoken to some women in the developing countries, and they told me that laws are important for them because laws provide at least a reference point. They can go back to their policy makers and say, look, their government, and say, look, your law says this, why is this not happening? So women in different stages of development may require different kinds of intervention.
ما هي الرسالة التي يمكن أن توجهيها للشابات العربيات وكذلك جيل الشباب العربي بشكل عام؟
Well, I want to send a message. I wish I could send a message, not just to the young, but to the whole Arab society, because it's a whole society that supports the young, and especially the women, that allows them to grow and develop. And the message is that, talents are very scarce commodity throughout the world, not just the Arab world, not just Singapore. So if you do not open up the minds, allow the women to fully participate and develop for the benefit of humanity, it's not for the benefit of the women, because we tend to think that when women get education, is able to work, develop themselves, it's for their own benefit. No, it's for the benefit of humanity, of society, of the family. Better educated women, for example, it brings up better children, So that's a very obvious thing. So that message is there. For the young people, I want to say that opportunities are growing, because right now through the internet people can access, there's a lot of information and knowledge they can access. So they should not feel discouraged. They should pursue their goals in life, and then what they can do is persuade those who have an influence over their lives to see the benefit of allowing them to pursue their goals. And so I think there's especially in the Arab world, there's a lot of very young people. Your population is very young.
Yeah, 60% of the population is young.
Indeed. And so I think opportunities for development and growth is tremendous. For them to contribute to society is tremendous. Not just the society, to contribute globally to the world is tremendous, yeah. And they should just focus and concentrate, pursue their goals, yeah.
أتذكر أنه أحد اهتماماتك الرئيسية هو تعزيز التفاهم بين مختلف الجماعات العرقية والثقافية والدينية على وجه الخصوص. على مستوى العالم نشهد العديد من المبادرات الدولية حول هذا الموضوع في جميع أنحاء العالم. من وجهة نظرك، ما الذي يمكن عمله لتعزيز مثل هذه الحوارات؟
In 2019, I initiated the International Conference on Cohesive Societies. That's an international dialogue that was held in Singapore. So we had 1,000 participants from 40 countries all over the world coming. And then we had a second conference in 2022. That's precisely for the point to your question about how do you promote. That's our attempt at trying to promote cohesiveness, particularly in countries that are multi-religious, multi-ethnic. Why is cohesion important? I think is perhaps obvious. If you have cohesion, you will have stability. With stability, you have progress. Because if the countries have to worry about how to deal with these different disturbances, conflicts, hostilities, the country will have no time to focus on what is more important: economic growth, human development. So it is important. And why is it also important, apart from stability, for economic growth? But it's also because it's for the individual and society's well-being. If you have to worry all the time about conflicts, contention, hostilities with your neighbors or friends or a different religion or faith or race, I think it is a very fragmented society. There is no harmony. So, and we have seen that happening in all over the world. It's become worse, partly because of COVID. People become so insecure. They feel resources are even more limited, and therefore they've become a lot more identity bound. They've receded into their own group identities. Now, if we don't address that, it will only worsen. Polarizations, conflicts will become worse. And so, understanding of each other is so basic, and understanding of each other in our own country, across to other countries in the world, is also very important. So that's why, to me, social cohesion is very critical, and we must reach out. And I think the two conferences have been really quite successful. We had a lot of people from all over the world, different ethnic groups, different religious groups coming together. And the most important thing is also we put aside time and the program for young people. We had a young leaders program, and we specifically requested that some young people of certain age group should be allowed to come and take part in the discussions. And they did. And they came up with very good ideas about how to implement it in their own countries, and some in Singapore together with Singaporeans. So I think there is a great hope. We should always include the young and make sure that they feel that the society, this country belongs to them, and then they are able to contribute to shape their future. We can't be shaping their future. Sure. We need the young to be able to see, and then to be able to say, I can shape my future, and I like what I'm shaping in. Yeah.
فخامة رئيسة سنغافورة حليمة يعقوب، نشكر لك شرف السماح لنا بهذه المقابلة، نتمنى لكم كل التوفيق. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
وإلى هنا مشاهدينا الكرام تنتهي حلقة هذا الأسبوع من البعد الآخر. تابعونا دائما على انستغرام، يوتيوب وتويتر وعلى شاهد أيضا. إلى اللقاء.